Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, there was, and I think better part of Monday, there were social media reports and a multiple of other sources that revealed about mass exodus of diplomats that are leaving the country urgently. As the discussion about the three-day continuous protests by Azimio la Umoja continues to saturate media spaces. And it is very clear that while as a country, we can casually be dealing with a crisis, but in the eyes of our friends from other countries, it is very clear that we are dancing with fire. Welcome to the Bold Analysis. Thank you very much for your support. As you can realize, I'm shooting this video in a different background. Yes, I'm shooting at home. Yes, so that as I travel home, of course, for the other engagements. Ladies and gentlemen, why is it very clear that the country is talking about the mass action casually, but people are leaving? Foreign diplomats are leaving the country. The photos were actually shared about people making an exit. Remember, in this country, for the last between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, of course, we received 15 heads of state that trooped in the country. And of course, for some international summit, I think, that is going on in the country. And before that, there was an advance team that is coming. And probably that's why the protests were pushed to Thursday. And this then means very well, then this means that we are at a stake. In fact, our position in the international space or in the regional space is really at risk. But I want to just reveal to you, I have some 3 observations I want to make why the situation, the way we are handling it casually, is because why handling it casually is causing us have diplomats to leave. Why Kenya has not instilled confidence of security. But before that, let me just explain something a bit. Ruto is taking the protest casually because the advisors and people around him could be telling him that it is about Raila-Odinga. That's number one. They're telling him that narrow the whole thing, there's nothing going on here. Raila is looking for some job, and when you give Raila a job, you might really get a solution about this. This can end it. But the truth of the matter here is the kind of messaging around the mass action on the cost of living is something that many will actually tell you that it can get to a point that even Raila cannot quell it. Even Raila, if Raila tells people to stop, it might come a point that even his message might not get to the people, because immediately, especially when people then decide that we are going to protest. So that is number one. Number two, I think William Ruto's handlers have informed him or are really giving him some false hope that we can still do our usual propaganda and quell this mass action. So when we attack and bring all these propagandas, we will be able to manage and the whole thing cannot escalate. And that's a wrong footage to approach it. And so that is why, these are my 3 reasons why actually we have failed as a country to manage this and why these diplomats are actually leaving. Number one, Ruto's tone is not oozing any wisdom. It's not oozing any hope, even to our international friends. I've always said here, and I will repeat and do not get tired of repeating, the person that needs to come down is William Ruto. He is the president. He is the president. Raila-Odinga is an opposition leader and is just like an influencer. But Raila do not hold any position of influence in government. If a decision is to be made and it is to be implemented, or rather it's to be executed, the execution is done by the executive. Implementation of anything to bring peace can only fully be implemented by the government. But listen to William Ruto's speeches over the weekend on the other end, he was in, I think he was in Homa Bay, saying the way they are supposed to, they should have a talk with Raila Odinga, so that they bring the discussion to an end, the discussion about, they bring the discussion about the mass action to an end. But on the other side, while speaking, I think probably that was in central Kenya, and his MPs or members of parliament are on his side, are chest thumping the way they are able and willing even to use their supporters to counter the mass action. So for someone who, and some of these diplomats, they've gone to different countries. They've also gone to countries that have always been torn in the middle because of recklessness of the leadership and the way the leadership holds things casually. So that is why I'm saying William Ruto's tone is not oozing hope, because I've always asked, in this context, Raila Odinga is telling the people that things are bad and William Ruto is not listening to us as the people. Now, William Ruto, instead of talking to the people, he is actually arguing with the people. If Raila is saying that cost of living is high, it is true. The cost of living is high. And it is very true that probably some of these things started way back before William Ruto came into power. But instead of focusing on how to handle the question of cost of living, you are juxtaposing the situation by saying, why is Raila complaining while the cost of living was high during Uhuru's time and did not complain? Does that solve the question? So you find the kind of approach in it is not giving any hope. When you're talking about the cost of living, William Ruto is asking Raila that the cost of living is high because the economy was dilapidated by Uhuru Kenyatta. Or people are protesting because of Uhuru Kenyatta. So you will realize that William Ruto's tone is not oozing any wisdom. It's not oozing any hope to anyone, even a Kenyan or diplomats. And that is why we are losing. And what are we losing? These fellows that are living in this country are supposed to support our tourism sector, our hospitality sector. When they're here, they're paying hotels. They're staying in hotels. These hotels are employing people in the sector. They're using transport. You know, we are getting some money, accommodation here, food. They are consuming our products as a country. So us as a country, we're losing. Number two, there is something Kenya Kwanza is doing, and I want to say it. I wish someone listens. Bringing Uhuru Kenyatta in the picture is creating more fear. You know, it is only some few UDA supporters and those who support William Ruto that believe that Uhuru is inconsequential. But at an international stage, when a sitting president comes out and say that a former president wants to topple me and is sponsoring protests, when you come and make such a huge statement for someone who is coming from another country, you know how Brazil, the situation became dire because two presidents were actually fighting for power. So to other people outside this country, when you say, you come out and say that Uhuru Kenyatta is fighting you to topple me, while it can casually be said here as a propaganda, but to someone staying outside this country, to someone listening, what does that person take? That person take that Kenya is not safe, and of course, if a former president is involved, then probably we need to leave. So my point I'm making here is, bringing Uhuru Kenyatta in the picture forcefully by that propaganda is already creating some fear. I wish those in government and those in the decision-making table would actually see that. They would actually see the bigger picture. While you are bringing Uhuru Kenyatta by complaining so that it politically you want to run a propaganda, but to some people outside this country, to some very dignified fellows, Uhuru Kenyatta is a mediator, a very serious mediator in this country. What exactly is going on? It is very clear that when we are insinuating that Uhuru Kenyatta wants to topple William Ruto, it is something that is creating a fear, and it is us losing. While we want to manage the whole situation, I wish we'll be so much idealistic and go through what is the idea. Let's really define the problem. What is that problem? Can we remove Raila Odinga as a catalyst and Uhuru Kenyatta and ask the people? Just ask the people, why are we protesting? Let's get that answer. And that answer, if people are protesting about the cost of living being high does not affect Raila or Uhuru Kenyatta. It affects the people. Why don't you try that instead of going after individuals? Lastly, people are leaving because I know that US and other foreign nations, some have very classified intel in what's happening in this country. And maybe the kind of intelligence that they are receiving is giving them a different picture from what probably William Ruto have in his diary. And so their own intelligence is very clear. You know, in this situation, I've always been saying, in some instances, you will see America, this country, giving advisory, travel advisory, or movement advisory, migration advisory to the members of their citizens in this country. But this time round, they've not been doing that. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the intel. That doesn't mean they don't have the intel. And you know, we've always known in Africa, things start this way. We need to be very sensitive. There is something that a neighbor could be seeing, but a neighbor is telling you, you're dancing with fire. But you're seated here laughing and you're saying that the neighbor doesn't know what he's doing or the neighbor is just fearful. So we need to look at this critically, that something is not right and it should not be taken casually. I really do think that the situation can be arrested. It is not about Raila Odinga, but Raila Odinga can help with William Ruto. William Ruto needs to look for where Raila is. Meet Raila. Sort out this thing. And after meeting Raila, get a solution, come to the people, give the public a tangible solution. When you give the public a tangible solution, you know, make very radical decisions. If the issue is about the cost of living, which is high there, if it is about IBC, you know, if it is about the server, why don't you handle it? Just address these things. You can address them. You may not give a possible solution, a definite solution, but an attempt will actually show that you have a good intention about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my take. Let's meet in the next.